Well, they get into it a little bit further down in the article, but the big thing is placement services, getting through some interview training, getting through some resume writing. A lot of these things aren't familiar to us when we're in the military. We don't necessarily have a civilian resume up to speed. And a lot of transitioning service members forget that that is a critical component to finding work in the civilian world. So I think getting a lot of the little foundational blocks in place is the intent of this legislation, because frankly, our community needs that help. So I'm pleased that they're getting at the root of the problem. Hopefully there's also kind of an expansion down the road to get to some of these other services that veterans need, like getting their online profiles on LinkedIn up to speed. Some of this stuff is done in TAP, but really, is it done in TAP? I don't know.
Right.
You spend a half hour on it. You might spend an hour on it. But frankly, your online, your digital presence, your interview skills, what your resume looks like, who you're networking with, name them all, are all things that the veteran needs to have polished before they leave the military. And frankly, they need to be interviewing before they leave the military to really make it a seamless transition. So that's my take. Chris, I'll kick it over to you to get your 2 cents.
Yeah, and shout out to First Lady Jill Biden, who not only in this administration, but in previous administration, in partnership with Michelle Obama, they have done a lot for military transitions and have always kept the spouses in mind, because the spouses, not even at the time of PCS, but even every single move and every single the challenge of finding gainful employment with the ability of leveraging the things that they know and can contribute is always difficult. And so this was part of the 4+1 campaign, and hopefully there's more behind this. And one of the questions that I have is, when I was in, I didn't have a significant other. I didn't have kids. I didn't have anything that a lot of the folks have to worry about. My goal of going through TAP was to get PCS. So I did whatever I had to do to get the hell out. And I didn't personally take full advantage of it. And, I understand why that happens, because time and place matters. We've spoken about, some of these things and how important they are. And we've had previous videos that you can go back and watch on looking at building LinkedIn profiles or things to consider in resumes, how to be seen. But repetition of the prayer doesn't hurt the prayer, right? And these things will matter. Unfortunately, it often happens at a time where people need something. So the more that they can prepare, and from what I'm taking from this article is that we're trying to help people prepare before, so it isn't as big of a life crisis of when the transition actually happens, or when you find yourself unemployed, whether it's the veteran transition and veteran member or the spouse. And so again, anything more that we could do to continue to beat this drum and get people thinking about careers in a different way, whether they know to access things on base if they have access to it, or through TAP if spouses have access to things through TAP, or the local workforce boards that help with all of these same skills. It is making sure that they understand where these benefits exist, what benefits they could garner, and how do they access them. Those are the things that we should just continue to, and that's why we're talking about this today.
Absolutely. Now, I think that, when it comes to the way that the VA structures these types of things, these grants, they're 99.9% of the time targeting nonprofits that are already in existence and administering some sort of employment program. Now, what I've seen, and look, I get it, it's geographic, it's not probably this way everywhere, but a lion's share, what I've seen is typically the veteran serving nonprofit tip of the spear is homeless services.
Yeah.
Then they have these kind of wraparound services, and they'll reach out for these additional grants to provide maybe employment services. So I throw that out there because you might not be homeless, but you might need help finding your next job. So make sure that you don't short side yourself by going, oh, that's a homeless. I'm not going to talk to them. Reach out to that local organization that it may serve as a nonprofit for homeless veterans and ask them if they have an employment program, because they might be getting this money. When I ran a nonprofit for homeless veterans, I had the bulk of the money was VA grants for homeless services. However, I had a grant from a local grocery store chain that gave us a grant to help with employment stuff for veterans. So I had a part-time, half-time worker who administered that program. So it's going to be kind of the same thing. They're focused on organizations that already have this stuff in place. The VA can't do it. I mean, they'd have to hire a bunch of new people and all that stuff. It doesn't make sense. So sometimes people think, well, why doesn't the VA just do this? They're going to leverage resources that are out there and not have to pay them as employees. And in the end, it's probably cheaper for the VA to get this to the boots on the ground aspect. The services, one of the things that I've noticed so far, and I believe to be true, is this program is not going to be inhibited by household income or age. So you know, if you need to help find a job and you're 63, well, then here you go. If your spouse is making $150,000 a year, but you need to go find a job too, well, here you go. So right. I think that there's going to be a lot of options here for folks. Some of the services that they're going to include, right, are resume writing assistance, interview training, employment placement services, and related help. The one thing out of all of that I would really lean on is employment placement services. This means they've created relationships with local organizations, typically within their geographic area, right? Within a commutable distance, probably within a 15-minute drive anywhere around their location is usually where their real power is. And you know, you never know who they may have partnered with, and they might have partnered with a great organization that you want to get in with. So don't be shy. Ask what employers do you guys have partnerships with, because you might be able to leverage that. Anything else that you guys wanted to chime in on this aspect?
I think, you know, directing these programs and these resources further to the left in the veterans timeline or the transitioning service members timeline is really important. I talk to a lot of veterans. All three of us work with veterans. And one of the common themes that we hear is, I wish I would have done X, Y, or Z sooner. You could throw BDD out there. I wish I would have got my VA claim done while I was still on and had those benefits ready for me right when I walked out the door for the last time. And on day one as a veteran, I wish I had it. For a lot of transitioning service members and their spouses, the first touch point that they have with the VA, although it is a DOL program, is TAP. And I feel like it's not enough and it's too late in the service member's timeline. Just because a service member is still on active duty, once they put in that request to, you know, be honorably discharged or to retire, that's the time to start working with that individual. You know, a lot of times those orders take 3, 6, 10, 12 months to really fully process before they hit the street as a civilian. And they need to be working with some of these programs and through some of these processes to make sure that it's as smooth a transition as possible. So that's kind of what I was thinking on.
Yeah, absolutely.